How you doing, guys and girls? Welcome back to Maslin Investing University. Appreciate you guys tuning in. My name's Dana Brown. Once again, I've been mentioning it recently. Don't be afraid to submit questions in reference to this whole land investing business. I look forward to getting you guys questions. Like I've said prior in a couple videos, if I get the questions and it's something I haven't addressed yet, I'll go ahead and create a video. Try to answer the question. If I don't have the information, I'll go out and find the information, try to give you a solid answer, point you in the right direction. So that being said, don't be afraid to go ahead and submit your questions via email or through the YouTube platform. Once again, also, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. This way you get notified when I'm going ahead and launching a new video. Typically, we launch 2 a week. We try to do them on Tuesday and Thursday. Not always the case, but we try to be pretty consistent. I think we've also launched about 6 or 7 podcasts. Typically on Saturday we launch those. So stay tuned for all that stuff, guys. It's all great information. What I want to talk about today is a little bit different. It's the land investing business spectrum. It's another option. I considered it years ago, and what it is, it's a tax deed surplus. Tax deed sale surplus is actually the term, I guess. And what happens is, I've created a couple videos on buying at tax deed sales, created another one on how to work around the tax deed sale, take the list and try to deal with the customers on a one-on-one prior to the tax deed sale and get some better deals. This is another way to think outside the box. What happens is, years ago, I had given my wife some property. I said, here's some real jewels, take these, put them in your pocket, keep them. Well, the market was hopping. I got them at a great price. I want to say 10, 15 grand a piece. They got up around 70, 80,000 a piece, and I mentioned to her, I think I gave her 2 or 3. I said, go ahead and sell these properties. And she didn't want to hear what I was saying. She wasn't in the land investing business, but I knew it was coming to a peak. She decided she wanted to keep the properties. Long story short, as time passed, she wasn't paying taxes on the property. So I'm not sure why. I don't know if she missed the mail or wasn't paying attention. But she got a notice that her properties were going to a tax deed sale. She decided she didn't want to stop the properties going to the tax deed sale. Those were the 3 properties. It wasn't my business. I was busy doing my thing, so I let her handle her own stuff like I always let people do. I don't want to hold everybody by the hand. Long story short, the properties went to a tax deed sale. Now, typically how that works is the tax deed sale number, the starting bid, is established by what is owed on those prior year's taxes, including the interest rate that the person that bought the certificate lien on that property is going to receive. So I want to say her properties, there was a couple, let's just talk about one. One of those particular 3 properties, for instance, I think it started out at $5,000, meaning that's what the total debt was if you wanted to save that property prior to going to tax deed sale. So she didn't go ahead and pursue stopping the property to go to tax deed sale. It was $5,000 with back taxes, interest, and the rate that the person that bought the certificates, which had the certificate lien on the property. So let's call it 5 grand just as a scenario. It went to tax deed sale. The tax deed sale starting bid was 5 grand. It exceeded the 5 grand. I want to say this one particular property, happened to 3 of them, went to around $20,000, meaning it was bid way above and beyond what the starting bid was at this particular sale. So what happens is, after a tax deed sale, someone's required within, I think, 24 hours. It may be short. I forget what it was. It's been I think the last one I went to was last year. Don't quote me on that, but you were required to come up with that cash or cashier's check within that amount of time to pay for the property. Once the tax deed sale is closed for those particular properties on the list, and prior to the tax deed sale, the owners that owe the tax are notified through a registered or certified mail. Also, they publish a newspaper ad in that community where you live for a couple of days, notify this is what's happening. once the sale is complete, they send you a letter. I know in Florida that's how it works. I think typically in most places it's probably similar, but don't hold me to it. You got to check in each community that you're working in, each state specifically. The rule of thumb is they'll send you a notice, let you know, dear Mr. and Mr. So-and-so, dear Mrs. So-and-so, ma'am, your property sold at a tax deed sale. There's a surplus amount of funds available, which is $15,000 due to you. You have a certain amount of time to go ahead and request those funds come back to you. I want to say, from my recollection, in Florida, it's about 2 years. Upon completion of the tax deed sale, there's a 90-day grace period that the county will hold that property before they'll disperse the funds to the original owner. After the 90 days, you can go ahead and claim those funds. For instance, in her case, this one particular property that I'm using as a scenario, I want to say it was about $15,000 that was due to her, that was the surplus of the property. Now, she didn't recall getting a letter from the county notifying her of this. How I discovered it and how she was aware of it, she got a letter from a lady up in upstate New York, now we're in Florida, that let her know that she discovered that my wife had unclaimed funds in a particular county in Florida, and her business could get her those funds for a fee. I want to say this lady was charging 40% of the funds available. So if it's 15 grand, let's do 10, that's 4 grand, and 5 times 4 is 20. So that meant she was going to get 6 grand out of that 15 grand. My wife would net somewhere around 9. Now, because I'm an entrepreneur, and I never knew about this until this was years ago, I said, let me see that letter. I said, so I looked into this a little bit, found out you don't really need a license to do this. And what it is, it's typically called tax deed sale fund surplus. So this lady was offering a service to go ahead and get my wife's money from the county after that 90-day period and charging 40%. I said to my wife, listen, I got back, I talked a couple days later about it. I brought it up. I said, listen, honey, I looked into this a little bit. She doesn't have to have a license to do this. I found out what county your money was in. I spoke to the county, and I can get your money. We just got to wait a period of time. Her answer was, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go through the work. I would rather just hire her to do it and have her get my money. Now, what she said was, I've seen this so many times in the buying business. People are lazy. They got a life. They have other things to do. She was busy with other things, our children, her life. She didn't have the time to go ahead and pursue it herself, and I was going to do the work. I was going to do the footwork. So that service this lady was offering to my wife was a wonderful service for this company, because all they had to do was, I found out during this process, is she sent my wife a letter. I want to say that she faxed it to my wife. My wife signed a power of attorney in order for this lady to deal with the county, wait the 90-day period, solicit for the funds, receive the funds back to her company address, her company heading. In turn, once she received the funds, she forwarded the balance, which was the 60%, to my wife. In this case, it was about $9,000 my wife got, rather than the 15. That business is a wonderful business. Now, don't get me wrong, there's certain times, and I check it all the time, I've just never pursued it. There's certain times of the 4-phase real estate cycle that works well. Certain times it doesn't. If the market is flat, what I've typically seen over the years, I've watched it and studied a little bit more, is when the market is flat, the bids aren't driven that high, so a lot of times it doesn't exceed to a tax surplus of funds, meaning the bid was at 3 grand, a minimum bid, which is back taxes and interest owed and penalties. The bid usually ends at around 3 grand, and there's nothing left over, meat on the bone, for the original owner of that property to recoup. Another time, and I'll tell you, back years ago, we had bought a bunch of property, me and my partner. Spoke to one gentleman, we ended up buying, he didn't want it, was the same scenario I preached to you guys. We sent him a letter on a particular vacant lot. We bought 1 or 2 lots from him. In the interim, he told us that he owned another 21 acres in that same county, and he was fed up paying taxes. He bought it speculatively buying, thinking it was going to be worth all this money, the road was going to go in. It never come to fruition. We ended up doing our due diligence, bought that 21 acres. It was broken into about 6, 7 parcels, all clumped together for $50,000. There was a certain time during that market that property was probably, market value was a couple $100,000. I, myself and my partner were preoccupied with other things. We didn't sell at that time. Long story short, our business got dissolved. We went our own separate ways. I did my investing on my own. He went into another business years later. We still had those properties. A couple of times I reached out to my ex-partner, let him know that, listen, I would like to save the properties, and I never got a response. So, long story short, those particular properties, years later, I want to say 7, 8, 9, 10 years later, went to what I just referred to as a tax deed sale. I didn't try to stop the tax deed sale at the time. I wasn't really interested in the property. The road hadn't come to fruition. The economy was still fairly flat. Nothing was happening, so it wasn't a good investment for me, especially knowing this other gentleman invested and had it for years, paid an absorbent amount of taxes. Nothing come true for him, so I wasn't going to try to beat a dead horse, at least at that time, speculatively speaking. So we both agreed to let it go to a tax deed sale. And what happened was the pieces got put up to auction at certain times. A few of those, because the economy was a little weak, didn't exceed to get to a surplus, meaning there wasn't any money left over for us to recoup as the original owners. I kept in touch with the county. I had a friend in the county that was a realtor that worked for us back then, and she kept me abreast of what was going on. So I spoke with the county and said, listen, I'm interested in this tax surplus deal, not only for the properties I may have gone to a tax deed sale, but how does that work? And she gave me the information. I went online, looked it up. There hadn't been a tax surplus for 6 years because the economy was down, meaning nobody had exceeded the minimal bid to buy a property at that county when they had their tax deed sales. 2 of our properties went up to a tax deed sale. The certificate of holder forced the sale. Our 2 properties, I want to say, I'm pretty sure about this, were the first 2 properties that exceeded the minimum bid. Matter of fact, one of them went up for $6,000, I think, give or take, and it sold for $36,000. Another one I think was $7,000 or $8,000. I want to say it went for another $30-something thousand. So I want to say between those 2 properties we split close to 60 grand, I think. It's been a while. But that's an example of how the market dictates if there's going to be a surplus or if there's not a surplus. And how many people do you think out there that own property, got tired of paying taxes, nobody as a potential land investor got a hold of them, didn't get a list of delinquent tax owners of vacant land, never sent them a letter or a proposal to buy the property. They didn't think it had any value. They let the property go to a tax deed sale. Not only that, they had moved in the interim more than once. The county's job isn't to hire somebody to track you down like a detective. They do what they're required to do, and that's it. Minimal amount of effort to let you know what's happened. There's a ton of property out there nationwide that has a surplus value that's gone to tax deed sale that not many people take advantage of. Like I said earlier in this video, it's not always the case. It's another thing I've been teaching about, knowing the 4 phases of real estate cycle. When the opportunity's there, having other tools in your box to pursue opportunity. It's a great business. I wanted to address it with you guys. It's another option as a land investor to look into possibly. The requirements are minimal to get involved in it. It's another one of those things, thinking outside the box is key. Being creative as a land investor is key. It's another tool in your box. I wanted to create this video. I think some of you guys will probably get excited about that. And remember, there's a lot of people out there that most people aren't aware of it. I was a pretty savvy land investor when this was brought to the forefront, and it was like almost one of those aha moments. Wow, I didn't know about this. This is how this works. So me being who I am, I inspect what I expect. I put a week into it probably, speaking to counties, going online. There wasn't much information at the time. I absorbed as much information I could about this whole business. I never pursued it. I've dabbled in looking at it. I've entertained the idea a couple times, but I've never pursued it. I just want to address it, give you guys another opportunity to possibly maybe create a business to chase that money, provide a service for people that didn't know they had money sitting somewhere, that you can provide a service, charge a fee, recoup the money, and make some profit in turn. So once again, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I just wanted to put this out there for you guys. It's another option as a land investor. It's something that most people aren't aware of. They don't talk about it much. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Like I said earlier in the video, I've been saying this recently, questions, please submit them. I will answer them if I can. If I get more than a couple, and a lot of times even one solid question that's pertinent to this business, I will create a video to address it. I get excited when people reach out. I would like to see it more often than not. So please do so. Be a participant. Like I always say, be a student of the business. The people who ask questions seem to do better than the ones that sit back, that are reluctant. Either you think you know it all, or you're a little nervous, you don't want to sound stupid. No question is stupid when it comes to land investing. Any question you ask, I will address it, whether it's through an email or creating a video. So thank you guys for tuning in. Go out there and inspire somebody if you can. Continue tuning in. Like I said, typically we launch podcasts on Saturday. Rule of thumb is Tuesday and Thursday. We try to launch a video. We'll continue to do so. Our course is about 3 or 4 weeks. I know I've been saying that, but I have let a little bit of analysis paralysis set in. I'm getting really close, but I want to give you guys as much information as I can. I want it to be to the point, a to-the-point course, cost-effective, but at the same time, give you guys enough tools in the box to come out of the gate with confidence, knowing you got enough tools to become a pretty savvy land investor. So thank you guys once again. Have a great week. Go out and inspire somebody. Be safe. Be generous. Don't be greedy. Thank you guys. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.